The bone-white chalk bluffs of the Western Interior Seaway crumbled silently into the warm, shallow sea. It was a world of profound blue, a sun-drenched amniotic fluid cradling monsters. Here, in the Late Cretaceous, a dynasty of reptiles ruled the waves, and among them, Elasmosaurus platurus was an aberration of geometry, a profound miscalculation of form that somehow worked. She was born not with a cry, but with a desperate, paddling surge towards impossible light, a 3-foot-long scrap of instinct breaking through a leathery egg case into the dappled shallows of a mangrove lagoon. The world was a cacophony of new sensation: the crushing weight of water, the taste of salt and decay, the terrifying, darting shadows of her countless siblings. She knew nothing of her 40-foot future, of the 20-foot neck that would one day articulate like a serpentine periscope. She knew only hunger and fear. Her first meal was a soft, writhing squid lings, caught with a sideways snap of her short, sharp-toothed skull. It was a successful hunt, but success was ephemeral. Before the day's end, a swift, bulldog-faced mosasaur, Clidastes, shot through the nursery like a vengeful torpedo, its jaws sieving the water for her kind. She survived by stillness, by folding her flippers and sinking into the murky, root-tangled bottom, a lesson in cryptic survival imprinted before she was a day old. This was the covenant of her life: feed and hide, grow and avoid. For years, she was a creature of the littoral zones, a spectral juvenile haunting the kelp forests and reef margins. Her neck grew with disproportionate haste, each vertebra a masterpiece of lightweight construction. She learned its utility not as a weapon, but as a tool of stealth and economy. While pliosaurs bludgeoned and mosasaurs pursued, she became an ambush physicist. She could anchor her massive, turtle-like body deep in the water column, a hovering dark shape against the brighter surface, and let her neck drift upward with imperceptible slowness. Her head, small and streamlined, would break the meniscus with barely a ripple, gulping air into her capacious lungs before sinking away, unseen by the sharp-eyed pterosaurs wheeling above. She learned to snake her neck through the stinging tentacles of a jellyfish bloom to pluck a startled fish, to probe deep into crevices in the reef for sheltering cephalopods, to sweep it laterally like a scythe through a shoal of pearl like enchadas, her pebbly teeth securing the wriggling silver. Her 4 hydrofoil flippers, powered by immense shoulder and hip muscles, provided a slow, cruising momentum, but their true artistry was in maneuverability. With subtle, coordinated strokes, she could pivot her vast body on a point, a necessary skill for an animal whose front and back ends were so distantly connected. Adulthood found her leaving the relative safety of the coastal shelves for the open pelagic vastness of the seaway. She was a fully realized paradox now, a body the size of a sailing ship, armed with nothing but a long neck and a mouthful of pin-like teeth. Her world became one of endless blue, punctuated by the seasonal migrations of life. She followed the great pulses of plankton, the swarms of ammonites that darkened the water, the spawning aggregations of fish. Here, She perfected the art of the drift. In the sun-warmed surface waters, she would bask, her dark back absorbing heat, her neck coiled in a relaxed sea upon the water like the head of a resting swan. Below, in the cool, dark thermocline, she hunted the spectral shapes of belemnites and the ink-clouding squid. Her strategy was one of minimal expenditure. She was not a pursuit predator. She was a lurker, a patient scanner of the gloom, using her acute vision and hearing to pinpoint the flutter of a fin or the jet-propelled flicker of a cephalopod. Then, with a strike faster than the eye could follow, an explosive straightening of elastic ligaments in her neck, her head would lash forward, the jaws snapping shut on prey, often before her own brain had fully registered the motion. The signal travel along the lengthy spinal cord taking a perceptible fraction of a second. Her life was a solitary one, marked by silent encounters in the deep. She knew her kin only as competitors or, during the brief, instinct-driven frenzies of mating, as clumsy, biting partners. She skirted the territories of the true apex predators, the monstrous mosasaur Tylosaurus, a bone-crushing serpent that could have severed her neck with one bite, and the giant fish Xiphictinus, all gaping maw and rage. Her defense was her bulk, her deep-diving ability, and her profound neutrality. She was not worth the fight for most. She was oceanic furniture, a drifting log with watchful eyes. The end did not come from jaws but from the sky. The climate of the seaway was shifting. The Great Sea was shrinking, its circulation faltering. Plankton blooms became erratic. Storms grew more violent. One late autumn, a cataclysmic algal bloom, a red tide of toxic dinoflagellates swept through her feeding grounds. The poison neurotoxin accumulated in the shellfish, the fish, the cephalopods. She fed as she always had. The first sign was a lethargy deeper than any sleep. Then paralysis. Her magnificent flippers, those great engines of her life, ceased to answer. Her neck, that elegant tool, became a dead weight, a dragging rope. She sank slowly in a silent spiral through the light-filled blue, into the green, then into the perpetual blackness of the anoxic depths. On the seafloor, devoid of oxygen and scavengers, she settled into the soft ooze. The delicate ballet of sedimentation began, covering her, particle by particle, over millennia. The sea retreated forever. The crushing pressure of rock transformed her bones to stone, her story to silence. Until one day in 1867, a man named Edward Drinker Cope would unpack a crate of fossils in Philadelphia and, in a fateful error of reconstruction, place her skull upon her tail, creating a comic tragedy that would outlive her by millions of years. But in her life, in her element, she was no mistake. She was a testament to life's boundless ingenuity, a creature that turned a logistical nightmare of anatomy into a perfect, peaceful mastery of a hungry blue world. The sediment that embraced her was not a shroud, but a cradle for eternity. In the absolute darkness and stillness of the seafloor, where only the slow chemical pulse of anaerobic bacteria persisted, the immense scaffold of her skeleton began its alchemy. Seawater, rich in minerals, seeped into the microscopic pores of her bones. Cell by cell, molecule by molecule, The organic scaffolding of her being was replaced by stone, calcite, and pyrite, a perfect, heavy counterfeit. Her body, now a geological feature, became a nucleus for an entire ecosystem in reverse. The silent fall of marine snow, the ceaseless rain of planktonic carcasses and detritus from the world of light above buried her deeper. Layers became strata. Pressure mounted. The soft ooze compacted into shale, the carbonate mud into chalk, encapsulating her in a mineral tomb as the Great Interior Seaway itself drained away, its waters retreating before the slow, upward thrust of continents. Millennia folded into epochs. The world above transformed beyond any recognition her ancient eyes could have held. The age of reptiles ended in fire and darkness. Mammals, small and skittish survivors, inherited the earth, blossoming into forms unimaginable. Glaciers advanced and retreated, carving new landscapes. Where once had been the warm, shallow sea, there now stretched a vast, arid plain of shortgrass prairie beneath an immense bowl of sky. The ancient seafloor had become the rolling hills of western Kansas. And here in the late 19th century, the relentless human hunger for fuel and knowledge intersected with her rest. A railroad crew, digging a well through the tough prairie sod, struck not water but a strange, stony hardness. Curious, they pried free a large, oddly shaped rock, its surface patterned like nothing they'd seen. It was a cervical vertebra, number 32 of her 72 neck vertebrae, lighter than stone but heavy with mystery. Word reached the voracious ears of men like O.C. Marsh and E.D. Cope, paleontological princes engaged in a war of bones, the Bone Wars. Specimen hunters, paid by the foot and the fossil, descended upon the site. With dynamite, pickaxe, and burlap, they brutally liberated her from her 80-million-year confinement. Her bones, fragile and fragmented, were packed into crates and shipped east, a disarticulated puzzle traveling by steam and rail. In a cluttered, paper-strewn study in Philadelphia, Edward Drinker Cope, a man of frenetic genius and combustible ego, began the reconstruction. The bones were a chaos. He had the long, whiplash vertebrae, the massive limb girdles, the delicate skull. But the logic of the animal defied him. No creature in his experience or in the natural world as he understood it could possess such a preposterously long neck. Surely, he reasoned, it must be a tail, a whip-like appendage for an aquatic monster. With academic certainty, he published his restoration of Elasmosaurus platurus, a colossal, short-necked sea lizard with a gigantic, snake-like tail. It was a brilliant, logical, and utterly catastrophic error. The correction, when it came from his rival Marsh, was a humiliation etched into scientific history. The skull, Cope was informed with gleeful venom, was on the wrong end. The error became a legend, a shorthand for Cope's haste, and for decades it colored the perception of the animal itself. Elasmosaurus entered the public imagination as a clumsy, almost laughable creature, a biological mistake. For nearly a century, museum mounts and textbook illustrations often portrayed it with its neck curved in a stiff, swan-like arch, as if embarrassed by its own length, or coiled awkwardly like a sleeping garden hose. A passive, bizarre oddity. But science, slower and more methodical than the bone wars, continued its work. The rediscovery of more complete specimens, the advent of biomechanical studies, and the revolutionary understanding of plate tectonics, which resurrected the lost world of the interior seaway, began to correct the narrative. Paleontologists moved from simply describing bones to asking how they functioned. They studied the vertebrae, not rigid pillars, but beautifully articulated ball and socket joints allowing for immense flexibility in the horizontal plane, but limited vertical movement. They analyzed the muscle scars on the massive shoulder blades, calculating the power needed for the slow flight stroke of the flippers. They modeled the hydrodynamic properties of its body. A new Elasmosaurus emerged from this scrutiny. Not a clumsy mistake, but a sophisticated specialist. Its neck was not a stiff pole, but a stealth weapon and a precision tool. It was a creature of energy conservation in an open ocean where calories were paramount. The revised animal was a deep-sea drifter and an ambush predator of the mid-water. It could hover motionless, its buoyant body neutral in the water column, while its neck, with minimal metabolic cost, explored a vast sphere around it. The small head was a sensory platform, its eyes capable of stereoscopic vision for judging distance on a sideways strike. It could probe the murky depths for soft-bodied cephalopods, or sweep its neck through a dense school of fish, snagging prey with its interlocking teeth. It was an aquatic spider in its web of water, feeling for vibrations, striking with reptilian speed. Her legacy today is not one of error, but of elegance. She represents the extreme frontier of sauropterygian adaptation, a testament to evolution's capacity to push a single advantageous feature, in this case, neck length for resource exploitation, to its absolute limit. She teaches us that the logic of an ecosystem is often written in a language of anatomy we must patiently learn to decipher. The last leviathan of her line, she now swims again not in a Cretaceous sea, but in the human mind. No longer a comic reconstruction, but a soaring, serpentine icon of a lost world, boundless and alien possibility. Her true life, written in stone and now understood in spirit, was one of silent mastery in the blue, eternal depths. And so she swims on, not in the physical sense, of course, but in the great, evolving current of human understanding. Her bones, laid out in museum halls under the soft glow of track lighting, are no longer merely a collection of relics. They are a portal, a fixed point from which we launch our imagination into the deep past. Each new generation of scientists brings new tools to her silent testimony. CT scanners that map the internal labyrinths of her skull, revealing the shape of a brain tuned for processing underwater sound and coordinating a complex strike. Isotopic analysis of her teeth that can trace her migrations across the breadth of that vanished sea, reading the chemical signatures of the waters she traveled as clearly as a diary. Finite element analysis that models the stresses on her long neck, proving its strength and flexibility beyond doubt. Her story is a cornerstone in a larger, still unfolding epic. She is no longer an isolated curiosity, but a key player in the ecology of the Western Interior Seaway. We now see her in context. The Elasmosaurus as a mesopredator, a crucial link in a food web of staggering complexity. She was both hunter and hunted. The scars of healed bites on fossilized flipper bones tell of encounters with monstrous mosasaurs, narrow escapes written in calcium and trauma. Her existence shaped the behavior of her prey, driving the evolution of faster squid, more wary fish. And in her turn, she was shaped by them. This is the grand narrative she helps us piece together. A dynamic, thriving, three-dimensional world that existed for millions of years. A world as real and interconnected as our own oceans. Furthermore, her very improbability challenges us. She stands as a monument to the fact that evolution is not a march toward perfection as we might define it, but a process of relentless, pragmatic experimentation. It does not care for symmetry or elegance by human standards. It cares only for what works in a given moment, in a given environment. The Elasmosaurus, with its logistical nightmare of a body plan, was a resounding success for its time and place. It forces us to expand our definition of what is fit, to appreciate solutions that look, to our terrestrial, bipedal eyes, utterly bizarre. In doing so, she becomes a guardian of biological humility, reminding us that the scope of life's possibilities is far wider than our intuition suggests. Her cultural journey mirrors our own changing relationship with the prehistoric past. From the grotesque monster of Victorian sensation, to the comic error of early paleontology, to the dynamic, specialized animal of modern science, the Elasmosaurus reflects our own struggle to comprehend deep time. She has inspired artists, filmmakers, and writers, becoming an archetype of the aquatic behemoth. Yet, with each new scientific revelation, the fictional portrayals evolve, trading pure spectacle for a more nuanced, ecologically grounded awe. The final chapter of her tale is perhaps the most profound. The Western Interior Seaway is gone, its waters banished by the slow, tectonic ballet of continents. The Elasmosaurus and all its wondrous kin, the mosasaurs, the plesiosaurs, the ammonites, were swept away in the cataclysm that ended the Cretaceous, leaving only ghosts in stone. Her extinction is a stark reminder of the fragility of even the most successful and specialized lineages. She rules a world that no longer exists, a testament to the fact that Earth's history is a story of successive, magnificent, and irrevocable losses. Yet in her fossilized form, she achieves a kind of immortality. She is a direct emissary from a world 80 million years removed, a tangible thread connecting our age to that of the dinosaurs. We hold her vertebrae in our hands and span epochs. We decipher her life, and in doing so, we time travel. The quiet, patient science of paleontology is the engine of this miracle. So let the final image not be of bones in a drawer, but of the living animal, restored through the synthesis of evidence and imagination. See her now as she was, a spectral, graceful giant hovering in the sun-pierced blue, her body a shadow, her neck a sinuous, inquisitive line connecting the dark, nourishing depths to the shimmering world above. She is not a mistake. She is a masterpiece of evolutionary context, a perfect solution to the problems of her specific vanished sea. She is a reminder of the boundless creativity of life and a warning of its transience. And as long as we continue to ask questions, to probe the stone, to wonder, the great Elasmosaurus will continue its eternal drift, no longer through Cretaceous seas, but through the boundless ocean of human curiosity. Continue, and the questions we ask become ever more refined, the picture ever more vibrant. We now seek not just to understand her anatomy, but her lived experience, her Umwelt, the unique sensory reality of her world. Did the keratinous sheaths of her flippers sense subtle shifts in water pressure, granting her an intimate feel for currents and the movements of distant prey? Could she taste the water with a specialized palate, detecting the saline plumes of a migrating squid shoal from miles away? The shape of the bony canals in her inner ear suggests a creature exquisitely balanced, capable of maintaining neutral buoyancy and orientation in the featureless blue, a feat of internal gyroscopic genius. We ponder her intelligence. The brain cavity, while small relative to her immense body, shows enlargements in areas associated with coordination and sensory integration. She was likely a creature of sharp instinct and learned behavior, not of curiosity or play. Her memory would have been a map of thermal gradients, of seasonal blooms, of safe deep trenches and perilous shallow hunting grounds for Tylosaurus. She may have followed celestial cues or magnetic fields on her long, solitary migrations across the seaway, a living submarine navigating by a chart written in her genes. Her social life, or lack thereof, remains one of the great mysteries. The vast majority of Elasmosaurus fossils are isolated individuals. Was hers a truly solitary existence, crossing paths with others of her kind only in fleeting, aggressive competition over a rich feeding ground or in the blunt, instinct-driven act of mating? Or did they gather, loosely and silently, in areas of superabundance, a passive congregation of giants grazing on a dense, deep scattering layer of life, a Cretaceous version of a whale aggregation? The discovery of a bone bed, a mass assemblage of multiple individuals, would rewrite this chapter of her story, hinting at hidden social structures or catastrophic shared fates. Her death, too, is a field of inquiry. The red tide scenario is plausible, but other endings whisper from the rock. Some specimens show evidence of shark scavenging, the distinctive gouges of Cretaceous teeth on bone. Did she often die at sea, her carcass becoming a drifting, decaying island of sustenance? A whale fall 80 million years before whales. This final ecological role would have been profound. Her sinking body would have delivered a massive pulse of nutrients to the barren seafloor, sustaining specialized communities of scavengers, from armored isopods to primitive bone-boring worms, for decades. In death, as in life, she would have shaped her ecosystem. The very landscape that entombed her continues to yield new secrets. The chalk and shale of Kansas, Alabama, and Wyoming are not merely graveyards, they are libraries. Each new fossil, each microscopic planktonic form, each layer of volcanic ash acting as a geologic timestamp, adds a sentence, a paragraph to the epic of the Seaway. With technologies like LIDAR and ground-penetrating radar, we can now see into the Earth before digging, mapping fossiliferous layers across vast distances, understanding the ancient geography with a strategist's eye. We can reconstruct not just the creature, but the habitat, the salinity of the water, the temperature, the productivity of the surface waters, the rhythm of the seasons in a world without polar ice caps. And what of her lineage? Elasmosaurus was not an evolutionary dead end, but a spectacularly successful culmination. She was the pinnacle of the long-necked plesiosaur branch, the elasmosaurs, a group that thrived for tens of millions of years. By studying her more primitive cousins from the Jurassic, we can trace the step-by-step elongation of the neck, the refinement of the flippers, the gradual perfection of this unique body plan. Her existence proves that this was not a whimsical detour, but a stable, long-term adaptive strategy. Her ultimate disappearance at the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary speaks not to any flaw in her design, but to the sheer, indiscriminate brutality of a planet-wide catastrophe. An asteroid winter that choked the oceans from the surface down, collapsing the food web and leaving the slow reproducing, energy-intensive leviathans with no refuge. Thus, the legacy of Elasmosaurus is a double helix of awe and humility. It inspires awe at the sheer inventiveness of life, at the realization that such a creature not only existed, but flourished. It forces humility upon us, reminding us that our tenure on Earth is a blink compared to hers, and that our dominance is just as contingent, just as vulnerable to the random hammer blows of cosmic fate. Her story is never truly finished. Every summer, a new field crew might brush away the prairie dust to reveal another vertebra, a perfect flipper, or even the Holy Grail, a skeleton with the soft body outline preserved, revealing the contours of her form, perhaps even the shadow of her coloration. Each fossil is a new page waiting to be read. So let us leave her as we found her, but with eyes now open, not as a pile of bones or a mistaken reconstruction, or even just as a scientific case study. Let us see her as a being, a creature that felt the sun's warmth on her back at the surface, that knew the crushing, silent cold of the abyss, that hunted, that grew, that survived for decades in a world of immense beauty and constant peril. She was real. She was there. And through the patient, wondrous work of science, she is here with us now, a ghost from a blue world, teaching us forever about the depth of time and the magnificent, strange tapestry of life on our ever-changing planet. The last Leviathan swims on in stone in mind, and in the endless human quest to understand. To continue is to acknowledge that the line between her past and our present is not a barrier, but a bridge built of curiosity. The story of Elasmosaurus has transcended the academic journal and the museum diorama. It has seeped into the groundwater of our collective consciousness, becoming a modern myth rooted in fact. She is a cultural totem, a symbol of the profound otherness of deep time. Her elongated silhouette is instantly recognizable, evoking a primal fascination with the monstrous and the graceful intertwined. This final act of her existence, her life as an idea, is perhaps the most dynamic of all. We see her influence in the serene, gliding movements of imagined alien creatures in cinema, in the elegant, threatening forms of fantasy dragons that swim through seas of clouds or ether. She has shaped our aesthetic of the prehistoric sublime, proving that terror and beauty can reside in the same long line of vertebrae. But beyond spectacle, she serves a more vital philosophical role. In an age of ecological crisis, Elasmosaurus is a potent emblem of a complete, functioning, and now utterly extinct world. She forces a perspective known as deep time thinking. To comprehend her 80-million-year journey to our present is to viscerally grasp the scales of geological change and evolutionary patience against which our own hurried, transformative power is cast. Her extinction, part of a global catastrophe, holds up a distant, distorted mirror to our own Anthropocene era, asking silent, uncomfortable questions about resilience, adaptation, and legacy. The science surrounding her is now a collaborative global symphony. A paleontologist in Japan uses advanced 3D modeling to simulate the fluid dynamics of her next strike. A geochemist in Germany analyzes isotopes from her teeth against global databases of Cretaceous seawater chemistry. A paleo artist in the United Kingdom, consulting with muscle attachment specialists, renders her with a new understanding of soft tissue anatomy, giving her body a robust, muscular grace rather than the bloated, shapeless form of earlier depictions. This distributed, interconnected effort means her story is constantly being refined in real time, a collective project to resurrect the past with ever greater fidelity. And what of the future? The next frontiers for understanding Elasmosaurus lie in the microscopic and the molecular. The hunt is on for preserved biomolecules, not just bone minerals, but traces of the original keratin, pigment, or structural proteins. The discovery of melanosomes, microscopic pigment-bearing structures, in other fossilized creatures has revealed colors and patterns. Could we one day know if she was countershaded, dark on top, light on bottom, for camouflage in the pelagic light? Was her skin mottled? Did she have markings for species recognition? Furthermore, the field of paleoneurology is advancing rapidly. Detailed endocasts of her brain case may soon allow us to map the regions of her brain with enough resolution to infer not just sensory capability, but perhaps even behavioral tendencies. Was there a larger region for processing proprioception, the sense of her own body in space, a critical area for an animal needing to coordinate such a long, flexible neck with a massive torso? The ultimate, dream-like frontier is that of genetic memory. While DNA itself degrades far too quickly to survive from the Cretaceous, the science of evolutionary developmental biology, evo-devo, offers a different path, By studying the genetic blueprints of her living relatives, turtles, lizards, birds, and mapping how genes control the development of vertebrae, neck length, and flipper formation, scientists can work backwards. They can hypothesize the genetic switches that were thrown over millions of years to produce an Elasmosaurus from a more primitive ancestor. In a sense, we are beginning to read the original recipe, not from the fossilized bone itself, but from the shared cookbook of life that we still hold in our hands today. Her final lesson may be one of quiet interconnectedness. She was a creature of the open ocean, but her life was tied to the continents. The rivers that fed the Western Interior Seaway carried nutrients from eroding mountains, fueling the plankton blooms that fed the fish that fed the squid that fed her. Her body, sinking, carried those continental minerals to the seafloor. In a very real geochemical sense, she was part of the great cycle of Earth, a temporary vessel for atoms that had been in stardust and would become part of future rocks, soils, and perhaps other living things. She is a reminder that no creature, no matter how immense or isolated, exists outside the boundless, recycling flows of the planet. So we close not with an ending, but with an observation. The life of Elasmosaurus is a story without a final period. It is an ellipsis, trailing off into both the past and the future. With every new technological lens we train upon her fossilized remains, we peel back another layer of time. We move from what she was to how she functioned to how she experienced her world. We are, piece by piece, granting her a kind of posthumous consciousness in our own minds. Let her last image, then, be neither one of death nor discovery, but of eternal presence. Imagine her not as a ghost, but as a permanent resident in the vast mansion of Earth's history. She is always there, suspended in that warm, sun-dappled Cretaceous sea. The ammonites still spiral around her. The shark still glides past, wary. She still draws breath at the surface, the air warm and thick, her eyes scanning the waves. She still strikes with electric speed at the silvery flash of a fish. She is forever swimming, forever being. Our science, our art, our stories, these are simply us, on the distant shore of time, training our best telescopes on that faraway sea, striving with all our might to see her clearly, to honor the magnificent reality of her existence. And in that striving, we connect our fleeting moment to her enduring epic. The last Leviathan never died. She simply transitioned from flesh to stone, and from stone to memory, and from memory to a permanent question that fuels our wonder. What else is out there, waiting in the rock to be remembered? To continue is to understand that the narrative of Elasmosaurus is no longer a linear biography, but a fractal expansion of context and consequence. We must zoom out, beyond the individual, beyond the species, to see her as a single, brilliant point of light in a vast constellation of life that defined an entire planet for 180 million years. Her story becomes the story of the Plesiosauria itself, a dynasty of marine reptiles that outlasted the dinosaurs on land by a wide margin, that saw continents rift and climates shift, and that perfected not one, but several radically different solutions to living in the sea. Elasmosaurus represents the apogee of the long-necked elasmosaur strategy, but she shared her world with the short-necked, huge-headed plesiosaurs like Kronosaurus, the apex predator analog to orcas. She coexisted with the dolphin-like ichthyosaurs, which were in their decline, and the rising serpentine mosasaurs. Her existence, therefore, is a data point in a grand evolutionary experiment, the repeated colonization of the marine realm by land-dwelling reptiles. Each group, ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, mosasaurs, arrived at a different morphological answer to the same problems of propulsion, buoyancy, and predation. Her long neck was one of the most extreme and successful of those answers, a niche carved out with such precision that it avoided direct competition with the speed of the ichthyosaurs and the brute force of the plesiosaurs. This shifts her legacy from curiosity to keystone. In the elaborate calculus of the Cretaceous marine ecosystem, she wasn't just a passive participant. She was a variable that shaped the equations. By specializing in soft-bodied, mid-water prey like squid and jellyfish, she exerted a selective pressure on those populations. Her presence as a sizable, if not top-tier, biomass affected nutrient cycling. The very structure of the food web in the open pelagic zone of the seaway was built around and responded to creatures like her. To remove Elasmosaurus from the model is to collapse a part of that ancient world's complexity. She was a thread in the ecological tapestry, and her removal at the KPG extinction didn't just erase a species. It unwove a part of the fabric, contributing to the systemic collapse that reshaped life in the oceans. Her story also forces a profound temporal humility. We are accustomed to thinking of the age of dinosaurs as a monolithic block of time. But consider this. The span of time between the last Elasmosaurus and the first Stegosaurus is greater than the span of time between the last Elasmosaurus and us. She is chronologically closer to viewing the asteroid impact than she is to sharing the planet with a brontosaurus. This is the deep time perspective she embodies. A world so old that its own iconic inhabitants barely knew each other across its vast epochs. She lived in the final act of the Mesozoic, a world that had been dominated by reptile giants for so long it must have seemed the permanent, natural order of things. Now, we turn the lens inward. The study of Elasmosaurus has become a mirror for the evolution of science itself. The initial, comedic era of Cope was a product of a heroic, individualistic, and often arrogant age of discovery. The correction came through the slow accretion of evidence and peer critique. Today's understanding is the fruit of collaborative, interdisciplinary, and technology-driven inquiry. Her fossil is a benchmark against which we can measure our own progress in reasoning, humility, and technical capability. She teaches that science is a self-correcting narrative, and that today's definitive truth is tomorrow's stepping stone. And what of the rock that holds her? The Niobrara chalk, the Pier shale. These are not just geological formations. They are pages in the grimoire of Earth. They were laid down in silence over millennia at the bottom of that ancient sea. Each stratum is a snapshot of an environmental condition, A layer rich in volcanic ash speaks of a catastrophic eruption that dimmed the sun. A band of particularly dark, organic-rich shale hints at an anoxic event. The fossils within them, like Elasmosaurus, are the characters in the story those pages tell. By learning to read this language, we become translators for a planet that keeps its own diary in stone and bone. Finally, we arrive at the essence of her enduring power. She is a symbol of successful strangeness. In a universe that often seems to favor efficiency and conformity, Elasmosaurus stands as a glorious testament to the fact that the evolutionary process can and will produce the spectacularly bizarre if it confers an advantage. She is an argument for the existence of wonder in a material world. Her improbable form whispers that the possibilities of life are far wilder than our imaginations, left to their own devices, might conceive. We did not invent her, we uncovered her. And in that uncovering, we are consistently reminded that reality, given enough time, is the greatest artist of all. So, the invitation to continue is an invitation to perpetual rediscovery. There will be a day, perhaps soon, when a child on a museum floor, looking up at her reconstructed skeleton, will ask a question no one has thought to ask before. A graduate student will run a new software simulation and see a facet of her swimming dynamics that changes a subtle part of our understanding. An artist will imagine her in a new light, with a new palette, and she will swim into the public mind with fresh vitality. The life of Elasmosaurus is not a closed book on a shelf. It is an open manuscript in a well-lit library, its margins wide and inviting. New hands, equipped with new tools, will always be picking it up, annotating it, arguing with its older passages and writing new ones. She is a permanent citizen of both the Cretaceous and the ongoing human project of comprehension. She drifts now in the ocean of our collective knowledge, a majestic, serpentine silhouette forever just at the edge of our understanding, compelling us to venture deeper, to look closer, and to marvel. The story continues as long as there is a mind to wonder, a rock to split, and a sea of time left to explore. The act of continuation becomes itself a profound acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the true biography of Elasmosaurus is not contained within the span of her mortal years, but within the ripple effect of her existence across deep time, scientific thought, and human imagination. To follow that ripple is to trace the outline of something far larger, our own relationship with a planet that is not a static stage, but a dynamic, living archive. We begin with the rock itself, the final keeper of her secrets. The chalk that encases her is a sublime paradox. It is the compressed remains of countless trillions of microscopic algae, coccolithophores, whose calcareous plates snowed down for millions of years. This means her tomb is built from the skeletons of the very base of her food web. She rests eternally in a monument constructed from the foundational life that indirectly powered her own. This is the ultimate ecological poetry. Predator and prey, leviathan and plankton, unified in lithic stillness. The shale that sometimes cradles her is the muddy residue of ancient river deltas, the silt of distant mountains that weathered away. Her body thus became a node where the geological cycles of the land and the biological cycles of the sea converged. She is a tangible point of fusion between the living and the non-living world, a testament to the fact that biology and geology are not separate stories, but intertwined chapters of the same epic. Beyond the physical rock lies the rock of the mind, the intellectual sediment she has precipitated. Her extreme morphology has made her a thought experiment made flesh. Engineers study the biomechanics of her neck, not just for paleontology, but for insights into flexible robotic arms or underwater manipulation tools. Her hydrodynamic shape informs naval architecture in subtle ways, a lesson in stability and low-speed maneuverability perfected over millennia. In the field of evolutionary biology, she is a classic case study in allometry, the study of how the proportions of an animal change with size. Her growth from a proportionate juvenile to an adult with a wildly elongated neck is a map of how developmental timing can be shifted to produce radical new forms. She is a puzzle that, when solved, gives us the tools to solve others. Her cultural journey now enters a new, reflexive phase. Having been reconstructed by science, she is deconstructed and reconstructed by art and media, each iteration reflecting contemporary anxieties and fascinations. In some portrayals, she is a gentle, almost mystical giant, symbolizing the serene wisdom of the ancient earth. In others, she is a lurking horror, a symbol of nature's indifferent, strangling depth. This duality speaks to us. She embodies both the awe-inspiring beauty of the natural world and its sublime, terrifying power, a reminder that nature is not curated for our comfort. She is a Rorschach test for our own ecological psyche. Do we see a fragile wonder to be protected, or a monstrous reminder of our own insignificance? And this leads to her most urgent modern lesson. She is an emissary from a world that died from a sudden, rapid change in global climate and atmospheric chemistry. The parallels are not subtle. The Cretaceous world was a hothouse, with high CO2 levels, no polar ice caps, and expansive, warm, shallow seas. Her extinction was caused by a geologically instantaneous shock to that system, the asteroid impact and its resultant impact winter and ocean acidification. While our current crisis is slower and of a different origin, the underlying principle is identical. When the fundamental parameters of the planet's atmosphere and oceans shift too rapidly, the most specialized and energy-intensive life forms are the first to falter. Elasmosaurus, as a large, slow-reproducing, ecologically specialized consumer, was exquisitely vulnerable. She stands now as a silent, stony sentinel, a warning about the fragility of biological magnificence in the face of planetary upheaval. Studying her demise is not just an academic exercise. It is a form of paleontological triage, offering clues to the mechanisms of ecosystem collapse. Yet, within that warning is a seed of profound hope. the fact of her discovery. That we can know her, that we can piece together the details of her life and world from fragments in stone, is a testament to the resilience of information itself. It proves that the earth keeps a record, that life leaves a signature, that no existence, however ancient, is truly erased if there is a consciousness later evolved to seek it out. In this, Elasmosaurus offers a cosmic comfort. We are the consciousness the universe evolved to remember itself. Our scientific inquiry is a sacred act of witnessing, a way to defy entropy and grant meaning to the long vanished. By dedicating our intellect to understanding her, we are fulfilling a deep, almost spiritual function. We are remembering the forgotten. So, to continue is to accept a covenant with deep time. It is to promise to keep looking, keep questioning, and keep marveling. The next chapter may be written not by a paleontologist with a rock hammer, but by a programmer training an AI to identify fossil fragments in satellite imagery of badlands, or by a chemist developing a non-invasive method to print the isotopic signature of her final meal. It will be written by the next child who feels a chill of awe standing beneath her mounted skeleton, sensing the vast gulf of time and the tangible thread that crosses it. Her life, therefore, is a story that can only end when our curiosity does. She is no longer an animal that lived and died. She has become a permanent feature of the intellectual landscape, a mountain range in the territory of human knowledge. We climb her slopes to gain a better vantage point on the history of our planet. From her summit, we see the terrifying beauty of evolution's experiments, the sobering reality of extinction's certainty, and the humble, glorious role of the seeker in a universe rich with stories waiting in the stone. The last Leviathan does not ask for an ending. She asks for an ongoing conversation, a dialogue between her ancient mineralized truth and our modern yearning minds. As long as that dialogue continues, she swims, not in water, but in the endless, fertile sea of human wonder. The conversation with Elasmosaurus now spirals inward, towards the quantum grain of her being, and outward to the edges of our cosmic contemplation. To continue is to engage with the most fundamental questions her existence prompts, not merely how she lived, but why she compels, and what her silent testimony means for our place in the continuum of existence. Let us consider the atomic journey. Every atom of calcium in her vertebrae, every molecule of iron that once carried oxygen in her blood, was forged in the heart of a dying star long before our solar system coalesced from stellar dust. Those atoms were present at the birth of Earth, cycled through primordial oceans, were incorporated into shells of simple organisms, liberated by decay, absorbed by plankton, consumed by fish, and finally, over decades, woven into the magnificent architecture of her skeleton. In her death and fossilization, they were not destroyed, but transformed again. Today, those same atoms may be part of the limestone in a cathedral, the chalk in a child's hand, the calcium in our own bones as we stand before her fossilized remains. Elasmosaurus is, in the most literal sense, a temporary constellation of ancient stardust that assembled itself into a thinking, swimming form for a geological instant. She obliterates the illusion of separation between life, rock, and star. She is a reminder that we, too, are such temporary constellations, engaged in the same atomic dance. This perspective elevates her from a specimen to a philosopher's stone. She forces a reconciliation between the mechanical, Darwinian explanations of her form and the sheer, breathtaking artistry of its realization. Science explains the process, the selective pressures for a long neck, the hydrodynamics of flippers. But standing before her reconstructed skeleton, one encounters something that feels like purpose, a sublime and terrible beauty that transcends mere utility. This is the haunting frontier where empirical knowledge brushes up against aesthetic and even spiritual awe. Her existence challenges the sterile dichotomy between science and wonder. It proves they are not opposites, but necessary partners. The more completely we understand the mechanics of her cervical vertebrae, the more profound the wonder at their elegant engineering becomes. Her legacy also interrogates the very concept of nature. To us, a creature like Elasmosaurus is the epitome of the wild, the natural, the pre-human. But her world was not a pristine Eden. It was a dynamic, competitive, and often brutal theater of survival. Her serenity is our projection. Her reality was one of constant calculation, of energy budgets, of predator avoidance, of reproductive timing. She complicates our romantic notions of nature, presenting instead a vision of nature as a sublime and amoral engine of innovation and extinction. She was both a masterpiece of that engine and its eventual discarded product. And what of our role, the wise men who unearthed her? Our narrative has often been one of mastery, of conquering the secrets of the rock. But a more humble and perhaps more accurate framing is emerging. We are not just discoverers, we are listeners. The fossil is a signal, incredibly faint, broadcast across 80 million years. Our science is the increasingly sophisticated apparatus we build to tune into that signal, to filter out the noise of time, and to reconstruct its message. We are listeners to a story told in a language of morphology and chemistry, a story whose teller has been dust for epochs. In this act of deep listening, we perform a unique form of respect for a past that has no other voice. The future of her story lies in symbiosis between human intuition and artificial intelligence. Soon, AI may process global geological data to predict undiscovered fossil-bearing formations with uncanny accuracy. Neural networks might analyze the microscopic wear patterns on her teeth to determine, with new precision, the exact texture of her last meal. Was it the soft mantle of a belemnite, or the scaly flesh of a bony fish? Virtual reality will allow us to don headsets and not just see, but inhabit her world, to swim alongside her in a digitally resurrected seaway, experiencing the drag of water on flippers and the binocular vision of a strike from her own point of view. She will become more than an image. She will become an experience. Thus, The life of Elasmosaurus culminates in a paradox of presence. She is more alive to us now, in our understanding, than she has been at any moment since her death. She lives in the vibrant colors of paleo art, in the dynamic animations of documentaries, in the precise equations of biomechanical models, and in the quiet, focused minds of researchers staring at CT scan cross-sections. She has achieved a form of immortality not in heaven but in the noosphere, the realm of human thought and culture. So we end where we began but transformed. We began with a birth in a vanished sea. We end with a realization. Her story is a loop, not a line. It loops from stardust to biology, from biology to stone, from stone to mind, and from mind back to a renewed sense of cosmic and planetary connection. She asks the ultimate question of us. In a universe of such breathtaking, creative, and indifferent power, what is our duty as the creatures who have become aware of it all? The last Leviathan offers an answer in her silent, patient presence. Remember, question, marvel, and in doing so, weave the tapestry of the past into the meaning of the present, so that we may navigate the future with the humility, curiosity, and all that such a universe demands. Her final swim is through us, and as long as we continue to think, to feel wonder, and to seek connection across the abyss of time, her journey, and ours, will never truly end. To continue is to accept that the story of Elasmosaurus has transcended narrative and become a framework for perception, a lens through which we examine time, consciousness, and our own fleeting moment in the sun. We now move beyond even the grand cycles of atoms and ecosystems to the meta-narrative, how her existence sculpts the architecture of human thought itself. Consider the ontological shock she delivers. Before the great excavations of the 19th century, the human imagination of the deep past was mythic. Dragons, leviathans, beings of symbolic proportion. Elasmosaurus, along with her kin, replaced symbol with concrete, bewildering fact. She presented a reality more fantastical than any legend, a creature whose very blueprint defied intuitive zoology. This shock is not a one-time event, but a recurring echo with each new generation that encounters her. She is a permanent inoculation against parochialism, a standing rebuke to the idea that the world was made for our comprehension. Her form whispers that the universe is not merely stranger than we suppose, but stranger than we can suppose. She is an ambassador from a kingdom of the genuinely alien, yet one that flourished here, on our own planet. This fundamentally reshapes our relationship with reality. We are forced to become comfortable with the incomprehensible, to find a new kind of sense in biomechanical logic rather than familiar form. Her influence extends into the philosophy of science. The infamous error of Cope, placing the skull on the tail, is a classic parable about the tyranny of preconception. Cope expected the world to conform to a certain logic. The corrective process, spanning decades, models the scientific ideal. Evidence, however inconvenient, must eventually dismantle even the most confidently held model. Elasmosaurus thus becomes a fossilized lesson in epistemic humility. She teaches that knowledge is not a fortress to be defended, but a pathless wood to be traversed with a compass of relentless doubt and respect for data. Every student of paleontology learns her story not just as natural history, but as a cautionary tale in the history of ideas, a reminder that the map is not the territory, and the territory of the past is profoundly weird. On a more intimate level, she sparks a unique form of empathy across an unbridgeable gulf. We cannot know her internal experience, yet we are driven to imagine it. This act of imagination is a profound cognitive leap. We project sensations onto her: the weightless flight through blue gloom, the surge of power in the flipper strokes, the specific satisfaction of a successful strike. This is not anthropomorphism, but a form of biophilic connection, an attempt to extend the threads of sentience and experience back through time to another conscious, feeling being, however different its consciousness may have been. In trying to mentally inhabit her world, we perform an act of respect for a subjectivity that is forever lost, expanding our own capacity for wonder in the process. Her legacy also confronts us with the aesthetics of absence. The Western Interior Seaway is gone. The specific symphony of life it contained, the hiss of ammonite jets, the bellow of mosasaurs breaking the surface, the silent, gliding passage of Elasmosaurus, is silent forever. She represents not just a lost creature, but a lost world. This imbues her with a poignant, almost melancholic beauty. She is a ruin, but a ruin of a civilization not our own, a natural civilization of tooth and scale and instinct. This sense of loss is crucial. It fuels the conservation ethos of the present. To understand the finality of her extinction is to feel viscerally the stakes of the current biodiversity crisis. She is the ghost of a past collapse, urging us to prevent the next. Finally, Elasmosaurus becomes a mirror for our own future. As we develop technologies for genetic engineering and synthetic biology, we edge toward the ability to, in a sense, design life. Looking at her, we see what blind, evolutionary design can produce, a form of such radical specialization it seems almost like a conscious artistic experiment. She poses a question. As we gain the tools to shape life, will our creations ever possess the breathtaking, unpredictable elegance of a form like hers, forged by millions of years of trial and error in the crucible of survival? Or will our designs be clumsy, utilitarian echoes, lacking the deep time wisdom etched into her every vertebra? She sets a bar, a standard of evolutionary artistry against which our own nascent creative power will be measured. Thus, the life of Elasmosaurus concludes not with a period, but with an ever-widening set of concentric ripples in the pool of understanding. She is a datum point for geology, a case study for biology, a parable for the philosophy of science, a muse for art, a warning for ecology, and a touchstone for existential contemplation. She is, in the end, a question made flesh, or rather, made stone. And the question is this: in a universe of near infinite time and possibility, what does it mean to be a temporary, thinking part of it, confronted with the echoes of other, equally temporary, magnificent forms. We continue by living inside that question. We continue by ensuring that our own brief flash of consciousness honors the vast darkness that preceded it and the uncertainty that will follow. We continue by letting the silent, stony gaze of the last Leviathan remind us that to be curious, to be humble, and to be awestruck are not trivial emotions. They are the highest forms of respect we can offer to the cosmos that birthed us both. Her story is over, but our story with her, the story of our trying to understand, that story is forever beginning. The act of continuation itself becomes the narrative. It is no longer about adding more to the story of Elasmosaurus, but about recognizing that she has become a vortex, drawing in every discipline, every philosophical quandary, every yearning of the human spirit to connect with something beyond itself. To speak of her now is to speak in the language of metaphysics, of cognitive science, of deep ecology, and of cosmic evolution. She is a portal, and we stand perpetually on its threshold. Let us cross into the realm of consciousness. We will never know the qualia of her experience, the what it was like to be that specific, massive neural network processing the cold of the abyss, the warmth of the surface, the tension of the hunt. But her physical structure offers cryptic clues. The large orbits suggest vision was paramount, likely tuned to the blue-green haze of the marine photic zone. The inner ear structure implies a creature exquisitely aware of its own balance and orientation in a three-dimensional, featureless void. Her brainstem, the seat of autonomic function, would have been a master regulator of a vast, distributed body. We can speculate that her consciousness was not one of narrative or self-reflection, but of a profound, immersive sensorium, a continuous, vivid flow of hydrostatic pressure, temperature gradients, the darting bioluminescence of deep-sea prey, the distant, low-frequency vibrations of other giants moving through the water. Her mind was a map of currents and cravings, a living algorithm for survival, painted in sensations utterly foreign to our terrestrial, air-breathing perception. To contemplate this is to stretch the very fabric of our imagination, to admit other modes of being so different they redefine what being means. This leads us to the edge of a profound idea: paleontology as a form of time travel not of the body, but of the mind. By reconstructing her world and her form, we are not merely assembling facts. We are attempting a kind of disciplined, scientific telepathy, projecting our awareness backwards to inhabit a perspective that has been extinct for epochs. We are building a bridge of inference across which a ghost of understanding can walk. When a paleo artist renders her with accuracy, when a biomechanic animates her swimming gait, they are performing a modern-day seance, summoning the shadow of a lost reality into our own. Elasmosaurus in this light is not an object we study, but a consciousness we attempt with profound humility to commune with. Furthermore, she challenges our anthropocentric timelines. Human history, with its wars, empires, and art, spans a mere 10,000 years, a blink against her 80 million. Civilizations rise and fall in the geological instant it took for a single layer of mud to settle over her carcass. This scale is not just humbling, it is liberating. It relativizes our triumphs and tragedies, placing them within a drama of far grander acts. Our entire species' existence is a footnote to her chapter. This realization can induce nihilism, or it can induce a strange, cosmic peace. It suggests that our value may not lie in our permanence, but in our capacity to perceive and appreciate the grand tapestry of which we are a minuscule, but conscious thread. She, the unconscious giant, and we, the conscious dwarves, are bound in this mutual revelation. Her fossil also poses a question about the future of memory in a digital age. Her physical bones in a museum drawer are vulnerable to decay, theft, or neglect. But she now exists in a million digital forms, in research papers, PDFs, in 3D scanning databases, in educational software, in the pixels of this very text. This is a new kind of fossilization, a migration from the lithosphere to the infosphere. She has achieved a form of data immortality. Yet this raises a paradox. The digital ghost is both more durable and more fragile than the stone original. It requires an unbroken chain of technological compatibility and cultural intent to preserve it. Will future civilizations, or even our own in 1,000 years, be able to access the files that contain her? Or will she suffer a second extinction, a digital oblivion? Her story thus becomes entangled with our own struggle to preserve knowledge across millennia, a challenge far more complex than sedimentation. Finally, Elasmosaurus becomes a symbol for the ultimate scientific pursuit, the search for non-human intelligence, not in the stars but in the deep past. We scan the cosmos for signals, for patterns that indicate a mind like ours. But we have already found minds profoundly unlike our own, in the complex social structures of dinosaurs, the tool use of corvids, the echolocating genius of whales. Elasmosaurus represents a different kind of alien intelligence, one forged in an entirely different sensory and physical realm. Studying her is a training ground for recognizing the myriad forms that sentience and sophisticated adaptation can take. It prepares us to recognize life, and perhaps even mind, not in our own image, but in forms that might initially seem to us as bizarre and counterintuitive as a 40-foot neck on a marine reptile. She teaches us to look for the logic within the strangeness. So to continue is to embrace a permanent state of inspired ignorance. The more we know, the more profoundly we grasp what we cannot know. Her life is a koan, a paradoxical riddle meant to provoke enlightenment. The riddle is this: here is a being of utter reality, whose physical remains we can touch, yet whose lived experience is more distant than the farthest star. How do we honor that chasm? We honor it by continuing the conversation, by ensuring that the question never settles into a satisfied answer, by letting her strangeness unsettle our assumptions about the normal, the possible, the natural. She is no longer just a plesiosaur. She is a catalyst for wonder, a monument to deep time, a teacher of humility, and a mirror reflecting our own desperate, beautiful need to find meaning in the vast and indifferent chronicle of life on Earth. The last Leviathan has finished swimming, but the ripples from her passage are still spreading, traveling through the medium of human thought, reaching shores we have not yet imagined. As long as there is a mind to be stirred by the mystery of a long neck and a longer past, her journey continues. Not in the sea, but in us. We are the vessel now, and the voyage is forever. We have reached the precipice of silence, where data ends and reverence begins. To continue from here is not to add more words, but to change their nature. It is to speak of Elasmosaurus not as a subject, but as a colleague in the grand, silent academy of time. Her lecture is written in the lithic library. Ours is a whispered, ongoing gloss in the margins. Let us consider her not as a dead thing, but as a permanent state of becoming. She is caught in the act of transition, from life to stone, from organism to icon, from fact to myth. She exists in the liminal space between what was and what is remembered. This is her most powerful state, a perpetual almost. She is almost alive again in our models. We almost understand her world. She almost speaks to us through the stone. This almost is the engine of all science and all art. It is the fertile gap that drives us forward. She is the perfect inhabitant of that gap. Her presence also redefines the landscape of loss. We mourn the dodo, the thylacine, creatures whose extinction is painted with the brush of our own guilt. But the loss of Elasmosaurus is of a different magnitude. It is a loss so complete, so ordained by planetary and cosmic forces, that it transcends tragedy and enters the realm of the sublime. It is a loss that was written into the story of Earth long before humanity was a flicker of a thought. Grieving for her is not about guilt, but about a profound, aesthetic sorrow for the ephemeral nature of all biological magnificence. It is a pure, unadulterated elegy for a world that simply ended, teaching us that beauty and success are no armor against the turning of the astronomical clock. This elegy, however, is not passive. It sparks a counterintuitive form of hope. If such wonders can arise, vanish, and then be recovered by a later form of intelligence, what does that imply about the universe? It suggests that the universe is not only creative but communicative, that it leaves records, that it wants its stories to be found, even if it takes 80 million years and the evolution of a bizarre, bipedal, storytelling ape to do so. Elasmosaurus, in her silent, stony way, argues for a cosmos that is inherently meaningful, not because it cares, but because it is structured in a way that allows meaning, the connection between a fact and a mind, to emerge across unthinkable voids. Her very discoverability is an argument against cosmic nihilism. Now, project this forward. We are now the creators of records that will outlive us. Nuclear waste warning markers, geological layers infused with plastics, satellites in graveyard orbits. What story will we tell? The Elasmosaurus tells a story of adaptive brilliance and ecological integration. Our stratum will tell a story of explosive consumption and planetary alteration. She becomes the standard against which we measure our own legacy in the rock. Will future intelligences, sifting through the Anthropocene layer, find evidence of a species that, like her, found a singular, astonishing way to thrive within its world? Or will they find the scorched evidence of a species that, unlike her, failed to heed the limits of its niche? She is a silent auditor of our geological performance. Finally, we must confront the most intimate frontier, the frontier of shared substance. The carbon that forms the ink of these words, the calcium in the reader's bones, the iron in their blood, these are the same elements that cycled through her body. We are not just thinking about her. We are, in a material sense, made of the same stuff that once was her. The communion is not metaphorical, it is electrochemical. When we stand before her fossil, we are one part of the universe's matter looking at another, older part of itself, and recognizing a kinship that transcends biology. We are the universe becoming aware of a previous magnificent iteration of itself. So the ultimate continuation is to step beyond the documentary, beyond the book, and into a state of mindfulness. It is to hold two truths in the mind at once without contradiction. The truth of the stone: she was an animal. She ate, swam, bred, and died. Her story is over. The truth of the mind: she is a living idea. She swims in our curiosity, grows in our understanding, and reproduces in our art and science. Her story is constantly renewing. The life of Elasmosaurus is the permanent dialogue between these two truths. It is a dialogue that nourishes the human spirit by grounding it in a reality far vaster than its own concerns, while simultaneously lifting it into the realm of eternal questioning. Therefore, we do not say the end. We say, the specimen is catalogued. The inquiry remains open. She is in her case. We are in ours. The museum is time, and the lights for now are still on. The continuation becomes a meditation on the nature of ending itself. For Elasmosaurus, there is no final, clean terminus, only a series of transitions, each layering a new kind of existence upon the bones of the old. We have exhausted the biological narrative, the paleontological rediscovery, the cultural resonance. Now we must speak of her in the language of pure ontology. What does it mean for something to persist? She persists as a disturbance in the field of knowledge. Like a stone dropped in a pond, her existence creates ripples that rearrange everything they touch. The ripple touched Cope and Marsh, rearranging careers and egos into a legacy of rivalry and revision. It touches the child on a school trip, whose mental map of what is possible in nature is permanently expanded. It touches the engineer studying fluid dynamics, for whom her neck is not a fossil but a problem in flexible tensile strength. She is a permanent anomaly, a delightful error in the expected code of the world, and her continued presence in our collective consciousness ensures we never grow too comfortable with our own definitions of normality. Furthermore, she persists as a question generator. Every answered question about her physiology births 10 new ones about her behavior. Every modeled hunting strategy prompts inquiries into the social dynamics we cannot see. She is a cognitive fountainhead. In a world often focused on answers, she remains a champion of the fertile, beautiful question. Her entire form is a question mark sculpted in bone, Why this way? This generative power makes her immortal in the most practical sense, as long as she can make us ask how and why. She is an active, animating force in the intellectual world. We must also consider her persistence in the negative space of our planet's biography. The Western Interior Seaway is a ghost geography. We know it not by its presence, but by the profound absence it left behind. The fossil-rich deposits that now stripe the continent's interior, far from any ocean. Elasmosaurus is the spirit of that absence. She is the proof of the sea that was. To understand her is to perform a kind of geological haunting, to populate a hollow space in Earth's history with the living, breathing, albeit imagined creatures that filled it. She teaches us to see the world not just as it is, but as a palimpsest, with the erased lines of ancient seas and lost ecosystems still faintly visible beneath the prairie grass and the wheat fields. This leads to her final, and perhaps most crucial, form of persistence, as a benchmark for humility. In an age of accelerating human capability, where we edit genes and contemplate geoengineering, Elasmosaurus stands as a monument to a different kind of power, the slow, immense, iterative power of natural selection operating across spans of time that dwarf human history. We can build a skyscraper in years. Evolution built her over millions. Her complexity is not designed, it is emergent. Her elegance is not intentional, it is earned. She reminds the would-be masters of the planet that our brilliance is newborn, and that the universe has been engineering solutions of staggering sophistication since long before we arrived to give it a name. She is the old master to our eager, reckless apprentice. So, to continue is to acknowledge that we have moved beyond the story of a plesiosaur. We are now in the realm of her function as a conceptual tool. She is a scalpel for dissecting our assumptions about time, success, intelligence, and beauty. She is a mirror that reflects back not our faces, but the contours of our curiosity and the limits of our empathy. The last Leviathan, therefore, does not rest. She operates. She operates in the classroom, challenging young minds. She operates in the artist's studio, demanding a faithfulness to fact that deepens beauty. She operates in the scientist's lab, generating hypotheses from her silent form. She operates in the philosopher's study, complicating easy answers about progress and purpose. Her medium is no longer water, it is thought. And so the final, quiet continuation is this: to listen to what her long silence is really saying. It is not a story of triumph or tragedy. It is a simple, profound statement of fact broadcast across the ages. I was here. The world was like this. It is not a lie. Our entire endeavor, the digging, the dusting, the scanning, the modeling, the writing, the drawing, is just our way of whispering back across the canyon of epochs with as much clarity and respect as we can muster. We see you. We are trying to understand. Thank you for the wonder. The conversation is circular, eternal. It needs no more words, only the sustained, attentive silence of those who are willing to hear a story told in stone, and to feel in their own bones the echo of an ancient, magnificent sea. To continue is to accept a final paradox. The most complete understanding of Elasmosaurus arrives not in a summation, but in a release. We must release her from the burden of our narratives, scientific, cultural, philosophical, and allow her to simply be once more a fact of the universe. This is not an end to inquiry, but its maturation into a form of pure, unadorned witness. We have dressed her in our knowledge, draped her in our metaphors, made her a vessel for our anxieties and wonders. Now, we perform the final act of respect. We undress the idea and look once more at the bone. Not the bone as symbol, but the bone as itself. A complex mineral structure, a labyrinth of microscopic canals that once held blood vessels and nerves, a specific arrangement of calcium phosphate and collagen pseudomorphs. It is an object. It sits in a drawer in a climate-controlled room with a catalog number. It is cold to the touch. It weighs a specific number of grams. It fluoresces under a specific wavelength of light. In this reduction, this stripping away of story, lies a new and different kind of awe. The awe of the thing in itself, a knot of existence tied 80 million years ago and delivered into our present by the slow, blind conveyor belt of geology. This is the awe of the physicist, the chemist, the pure materialist. It is no less profound than the awe of the poet. It is the awe of contact with a reality utterly independent of our minds. From this blank slate, a final, quiet realization emerges. We are not discovering her. We are meeting her. The distinction is crucial. Discovery implies an object hidden, awaiting our cleverness to reveal it. Meeting implies an encounter between two entities across a gulf. We, a conscious, time-bound species, have reached across the abyss and touched, literally with brushes and gloved hands, the preserved physicality of another conscious, time-bound being. The encounter is asymmetrical, silent, and profoundly moving. It is a handshake across epochs. The message in that handshake is not in words, but in the simple, shocking fact of contact. It says, "You are not alone in time. Others were here. They were real." This meeting reframes our entire project. Paleontology is not merely a science of reconstruction. It is a protocol for encounter. The careful brushing, the precise mapping, the CT scanning, these are not just data collection methods. They are rituals of introduction. They are how we, with our limited senses and brief lifespans, say hello to a creature from an unimaginable yesterday. We are learning the etiquette of deep time conversation. Life does not have third acts and denouements. It has coherence but not plot. Her life cohered around feeding, growing, surviving, reproducing. It was meaningful to her in the immediate language of sensation and need. Our search for a moral, a climax, a conclusion to her story is a projection of our narrative-hungry minds. Her gift is to show us a life that simply was, magnificent and complete in its own existential terms, without reference to our desire. A presence to be inhabited moment by moment until the moments run out. So we close the catalog. We turn off the microscope light. We walk out of the collection's room, but she is not left behind in the dark. She is released into a new habitat, the cleared space of our understanding. She swims there, no longer burdened by our errors or inflated by our myths. She swims as a fact. A beautiful, strange, and deeply comforting fact. The last Leviathan has finally come home, not to the sea, but to the realm of the acknowledged. She is known, and in that knowing, she is forever free of oblivion. Our continuation from this point is not in adding to her story, but in carrying its essence. It is to look at our own world with the same double vision, to see the heron stalking the marsh not just as a bird, but as a future fossil, to feel the wind as a current in a planetary ocean of air that will one day cease to blow, to understand our own cities as potential future chalk layers, our bones as future curiosities. She has taught us to see time as a solid, sculptable medium in which we all temporarily reside. The conversation with Elasmosaurus is complete. The silence that follows is not empty. It is rich with the echo of her passage and the quiet hum of our own continued existence within the same vast, beautiful, and indifferent continuum. We began with her birth in a vanished sea. We end with her permanent residence in the ocean of what is known. And that is the only true ending and the only true beginning, to know and to be humbled by the knowledge, to have met and to be changed by the meeting. The rest is silence. A deep, Cretaceous, and everlasting silence. The drawer in the climate-controlled room slides shut with a soft, definitive thud. The catalog number is entered. The data is backed up on a server. The lights are off. In the darkness, she is once again alone with time, but something has changed. A circuit has been closed. For 80 million years, her story was a closed loop, a tale told only to the seafloor, recorded only in stone. It was a perfect, silent soliloquy. Then a new kind of vibration entered the system, the curious, pattern-seeking hum of a conscious mind, a mind that learned to read the stone. With that act, her soliloquy became a dialogue. Her closed loop was broken open and her story was siphoned into a new medium, the flickering neural networks of a later-born intelligence. We are that intelligence. And in this encounter, we find our own definition. We are the clay that became aware of the older clay. We are the universe's matter, arranged into a form complex enough to look upon another, older arrangement of itself and say, I see you, I remember you. Elasmosaurus does not need us. Her existence was complete long before the first ape stood upright. But we, it seems, need something like her. We need these emissaries from deep time to calibrate our souls. Without them, our history is a shallow pond. With them, it becomes an ocean whose far shore is lost in mist. She stretches our sense of what home means. Home is no longer just this valley, this city, this century. Home is the entire layered saga of life on this rock, a saga in which we are but the latest chattering sentence. Her final lesson is one of reciprocity. We gave her a name, a history, a place in our understanding. She gave us something far greater, a scale against which to measure our own brevity and our own audacity. A scale that shrinks our empires to a geological instant, yet magnifies a single act of curiosity into a bridge across eons. So we leave her as we found her, in the dark, in the quiet, in the keeping of the stone. But we do not leave unchanged. We walk out into the world carrying a silent, elongated shadow in the recesses of our mind. We look at the flight of a heron and see the ghost of a plesiosaur's neck. We feel the rain and think of the ancient sea. We hold our own children and understand, in a bone-deep way, the frantic, paddling surge of every beginning against impossible odds. The last Leviathan is at rest. Her journey from the warm, sun-dappled Cretaceous to the cool, silent vault of human knowledge is complete. She has reached her final harbor. But for us, the voyage is just beginning. Armed with her scale, humbled by her time, and haunted by her silent, graceful strangeness, we set sail into our own uncertain future. We are the inheritors of the blue world she ruled. The charge she leaves us with is not written in any book. It is etched in the contrast between her long, successful reign and its abrupt, cosmic end. It is a charge to be worthy stewards of the ongoing story, to be curious, to be humble, and to ensure that the future layers of rock tell a tale not just of a clever ape, but of a wise one. The Museum of Time is vast, and its collection is endless. We have spent a long while at this one exhibit, lost in contemplation of a single magnificent specimen. It is time to move on. But as we turn to go, we know we will be back. For in her silent, stony gaze, we have seen our own reflection, small, transient, but ablaze with the fierce and beautiful need to connect, to understand, and to remember. And in that reflection, we find not an ending, but our beginning,